Edward Scissorhands, the 1990 Gothic fairy tale that turned heartbreak into art. In this video, we're uncovering 20 shocking facts about Tim Burton's misunderstood masterpiece, secrets that reveal how one of cinema's most haunting love stories was born from real pain, surreal beauty, and a touch of dark humor. From Johnny Depp's emotional breakdowns on set to the hidden symbolism behind the snow, these aren't just behind-the-scenes tidbits. They're the strange, beautiful truths that shaped a film unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen. So grab your shears, sharpen your nostalgia, and step into the pastel suburb where fantasy met heartbreak, and where Edward Scissorhands reminded the world that being different can be beautiful. Number 1. Edward Scissorhands was born from Tim Burton's loneliness. Before Hollywood, before Batman, before all the fame, Tim Burton was a quiet, isolated kid in Burbank, California. While other kids played outside, he sat alone, drawing strange, pale characters with big eyes and misunderstood hearts. One of those drawings was Edward, a boy with scissors for hands, created long before Burton ever made a movie.
This is one of my favorite films because it's one of my more personal ones, and if you want to know what it's like growing up in Burbank.
He later said Edward was his emotional autobiography. Every snip of those blades symbolized the pain of feeling like he didn't belong, a creative soul trapped in suburbia's perfection. It's why the film's pastel neighborhoods clash so hard with Edward's black Gothic figure. It's Burton's real life, his own suburban exile brought to life on screen. Number 2. The story was inspired by a broken teenage friendship. When screenwriter Caroline Thompson was brought on board, she instantly connected with Burton's sketch.
One night at a bar in Brentwood, Tim told me about a drawing he had made in high school.
She'd written Edward Scissorhands as a love letter to the feeling of being loved, but not fitting in. But here's the twist. The emotional tone came from something deeply personal. Burton once admitted that the heartbreak of being misunderstood by people he cared about, especially in his teens, was the emotional spine of Edward's story. Edward's tragic love for Kim mirrors Burton's own unspoken heartbreaks, those crushes that never quite understood him. Every glance between Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder, it's not just acting, it's Burton's emotional history, reimagined in fairy tale form.
You know, I grew up with monster movies, and they were like my fairy tales.
Number 3. Johnny Depp cried after reading the script. Literally. When Depp first read Edward Scissorhands, he broke down in tears. At the time, he was still known mostly for his 21 Jump Street heartthrob image. He wanted to be taken seriously, and Edward gave him that chance. He said, "It was like reading something I'd been waiting for all my life." But the studio wasn't convinced. They wanted Tom Cruise. Seriously. Cruise allegedly asked Burton one question that sealed his fate. "How does Edward eat?" Burton, unimpressed, said later, "That kind of question misses the entire point." And just like that, Depp got the role. It would redefine his entire career and launch one of cinema's most iconic director-actor partnerships.
I can remember reading the script and it's embarrassing, weeping. I mean, I cried.
Number 4. The Scissorhands were incredibly painful to wear. Those iconic blades weren't CGI or lightweight props. They were real leather, metal, and harnessed joints that restricted nearly all hand movement. Johnny Depp described them as a medieval torture device with personality. He couldn't even scratch his own face, eat, or drink while wearing them.
Oh dear, you've cut your face here. Let me just get this right off. Does that hurt?
Between takes, crew members had to help him with everything, even lighting a cigarette. The suit was so hot under the Florida sun that Depp nearly fainted several times. Yet Burton insisted that the realism mattered. The way Edward moves, cautious, hesitant, like he's afraid to touch the world, was a direct result of that discomfort. That fragile physicality wasn't just acting, it was pain turned into poetry. Number 5. The entire neighborhood was a real cul-de-sac, painted pastel. That surreal suburbia? It wasn't a set, it was real. Production found a cookie-cutter housing development in Lutz, Florida, and transformed it into the film's bizarre fantasyland. They painted houses in absurd pastel colors, pinks, mint greens, and lemon yellows, giving it that dreamlike contrast to Edward's Gothic black. But here's where it gets wild. They actually convinced the residents to leave for several weeks while filming. The entire neighborhood became a movie set, with every mailbox, lawn, and hedge designed to look too perfect to be real. After filming, homeowners asked to keep the pastel colors, and for years, fans have made pilgrimages to that street, now dubbed Scissorhands Neighborhood. Number 6. The snow at the end wasn't CGI, and it made locals panic. That unforgettable final scene, snow gently falling over suburbia, wasn't digitally added. The crew used a massive snow machine, covering entire blocks in artificial flakes. But there was one problem. It was Florida, in the middle of summer. Locals began calling news stations, thinking the weather had gone mad. Some even drove by just to see the Florida snowstorm. For Burton, it was poetic, his memory of Christmas in Burbank, where it never snowed. He said that's why the film ends with Kim's line.
He's dead. The roof caved in on him.
Sometimes you can still catch me dancing in it. It's a dream, snow in a place it doesn't belong, just like Edward himself. Number 7. Vincent Price's final role was written as a farewell. Before Tim Burton ever directed Edward Scissorhands, he was obsessed with Vincent Price, the legendary master of horror. Burton grew up watching Price's gothic films, and meeting him was like meeting his childhood hero.
For Tim Burton, the most fulfilling aspect of Edward Scissorhands was the chance to work with the man who had been his lifelong hero, Vincent Price.
When Burton cast him as the inventor, it wasn't just fan service. It was a tribute. Price was already in poor health during filming, but he delivered every line with warmth and grace. Burton later said, "I wanted him to play God, but the kind of God who loves what he creates, even if it's flawed." This was Price's final on-screen appearance. When he dies in Edward's arms, it's not just the inventor's death. It's Burton saying goodbye to the man who inspired him to create monsters with hearts. Number 8. Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder's real romance made the chemistry electric. When you watch Edward and Kim together, that hesitant touch, those glances that feel like entire conversations, it isn't just acting. Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder were truly in love during filming. They met at the premiere of Great Balls of Fire in 1989. Depp later said, "It was like a scene in a movie, when you see someone and everything else fades away." By the time Edward Scissorhands went into production, they were engaged. Their relationship became part of the film's DNA.
I love you.
So much so that Depp even had Winona Forever tattooed on his arm. After they split, he famously changed it to Wino Forever. Classic Depp humor, and maybe a little heartbreak. That raw, fragile love you see on screen, it wasn't rehearsed, it was real. Every shy look and trembling hand between Edward and Kim carries that haunting, bittersweet energy of a love that couldn't last. Number 9. Diane Wiest personally discovered Edward's pastel world. The character of Peg Boggs, the kind Avon lady who finds Edward in his castle, was almost played as a parody of suburban life. But when two-time Oscar winner Diane Wiest joined, she insisted on adding something rare to Burton's world: sincerity. Wiest wanted Peg to be warm, compassionate, and a little naive, the human heart that brings Edward into the world below. And she didn't just play her, she shaped her. Wiest helped the costume team design Peg's lavender outfits, giving her a perfectly motherly glow to contrast Edward's gothic frame.
There's no need to be nervous. They're so eager to meet you. You just have to be yourself.
Myself?
That's right, just your own sweet self.
Burton later said Wiest's performance grounded the fantasy in humanity. Without her, the film could have become too stylized, but instead, it found its soul. Number 10. The suburban scenes were filmed like a 50s sci-fi parody. If you look closely, you'll notice something strange about the suburban sequences. They don't feel real, they feel slightly too perfect. That was no accident. Burton and cinematographer Stephen Chapsky shot the neighborhood like a 1950s alien invasion film. Perfect lawns, synchronized car departures, symmetrical camera angles. It's Leave It to Beaver meets The Twilight Zone. In fact, Burton said he wanted suburbia to feel like the real monster. Edward might have scissors for hands, but the neighbors, with their gossip, judgment, and fake smiles, are the true horror.
I just happened to be up, so I heard all this noise, and I ran out. I was
All along, I felt in my gut there was something wrong with him.
It could have been my house.
That visual contrast between pastel order and gothic chaos became a signature Burton theme for decades to come. Number 11. The scene with the butterfly wasn't planned. It was pure accident. During the final sequence where Edward is left alone in the mansion, a butterfly lands near him. Softly, almost symbolically. That moment wasn't in the script. The butterfly simply flew into the frame during a take, and Burton told Depp to stay still. It was so delicate, so eerie, that everyone on set went silent. Later, Burton said, "It felt like the inventor's spirit coming back to say goodbye." They kept it in the final cut. A fleeting accident turned poetic symbol of rebirth and memory. Number 12. Edward's haircut scenes were choreographed like dance sequences. When Edward cuts hair, whether it's shrubs or the town's residents, Notice how his movements flow like choreography. That wasn't random. Burton worked with Depp and the stunt team to treat those moments as ballets of blades. They even hired a movement coach to help Depp create a rhythm, sharp, then gentle, like scissors that breathe. Every snip was rehearsed with sound design cues, so the editors could time the cuts to Danny Elfman's music. It turned an act of danger into art, one of the film's most beautiful contradictions. In fact, some early viewers compared the hedge-cutting scene to a dark Disney fantasia. And honestly, that's exactly what Burton wanted. Number 13. The film's castle was built from scratch, and it nearly collapsed. Edward's castle, towering, gothic, and lonely, wasn't a real mansion. It was a full-scale set built on a hill outside Tampa, Florida. Constructed from wood, plaster, and steel, the structure looked solid on camera. But behind the scenes, it was a nightmare. Humidity, storms, and heat caused the plaster to crack multiple times. Depp recalled hearing pieces of it fall off mid-scene, forcing quick rewrites and safety checks. Production designer Bo Welch joked, "We built a haunted house, and it haunted us back." Still, the interior design, from the gears, the vines, to the Gothic lab, remains one of Burton's most iconic worlds, a decaying castle where innocence was born and left unfinished. Number 14. Danny Elfman's score was recorded like a choral requiem. That sound, the haunting choir, the gentle bells, the sweeping orchestral sadness, is pure Danny Elfman magic. But the process of recording it was as emotional as the movie itself. Elfman said Edward Scissorhands was his most personal composition. He blended children's choirs, celesta, and soft strings to capture a sense of wonder inside tragedy. It was recorded in London with a full orchestra, and during one session, Elfman broke down crying. He later said, "It was the first time I felt I'd written something truly beautiful." Burton and Elfman worked almost telepathically. Burton would describe colors and emotions, not notes or instruments. Elfman just understood. Their creative partnership became one of the strongest in film history, and this score was their masterpiece. Number 15. The ice dance scene almost didn't happen. It's one of the most beautiful scenes in cinema history, Kim twirling beneath falling ice flakes as Edward carves an angel. But what most fans don't know is, it was almost cut from the script. The studio thought it was too quiet and too expensive for a dream sequence. Tim Burton fought for it, hard. He argued that it was the heart of the movie. That's the moment Edward becomes human, even if no one can touch him. They finally agreed, and the sequence was shot over 4 freezing nights with giant blocks of ice and industrial fans. Winona Ryder recalled her tears in that moment weren't acting. "It felt like real magic," she said. That haunting snowfall, born from Edward's loneliness, became the movie's visual soul. Number 16. Every neighbor represents a different side of suburbia. One of Burton's genius touches was how he turned the neighbors into living metaphors. They weren't just comic relief, they were the town's collective conscience. Joyce, the red-haired seductress, embodied temptation and hypocrisy. Esmeralda, the religious fanatic, symbolized fear of the unknown.
"It's not heaven he's from, it's straight from the stinking flames of hell."
Bill Boggs, Kim's father, represented the polite ignorance of those who mean well but never understand. Burton once said, "Edward's not the strange one, everyone else is." It's the reversal of the monster myth. Where classic horror films made the creature terrifying, Burton made him pure, and let the normal people reveal their monstrosity. Number 17. The movie's ending was changed to make it more tragic. Early drafts ended with Kim returning to the mansion years later, finding Edward still alive, frozen in time, sculpting snow. But Burton scrapped it. He wanted mystery, not closure. In the final version, Kim simply says she believes he's still alive.
I don't know. Not for sure, but I believe he is.
And we see Edward carving ice, but she never does. It's a brilliant emotional trick. The audience gets catharsis, the character does not. Burton later explained, "It's about how love survives only as memory." That bittersweet fade to snow left audiences shattered and in love. It's melancholy storytelling at its finest. He can never touch her, yet he makes it snow for her forever. Number 18. Edward Scissorhands was Tim Burton's most personal film, and Hollywood didn't get it. When the film first hit theaters, test audiences were confused. Was it horror, comedy, fantasy, a romance? Burton didn't care about labels, but the studio did. Marketing teams had no idea how to sell it. They tried promoting it as a dark fantasy romance, but critics were split. Yet, for Burton, it wasn't about genres. It was about being seen. He said, "Edward was the first time I put myself on screen without hiding behind monsters."
That's right. Go ahead, smile, it's funny.
Over time, audiences understood. By the mid-1990s, the movie had become a cult symbol for outsiders, artists, dreamers, and anyone who ever felt unfinished. Number 19. It's considered one of the greatest love stories never told. Decades later, Edward Scissorhands still breaks hearts. Not because it's tragic, but because it's true. Burton once said that the most painful love stories are the ones that never fully happen, where both people change each other, but can't stay together. Edward and Kim never kiss, never truly touch, yet their connection feels more real than most movie romances.
Are you okay?
Yes, are you okay?
Film historians often cite it alongside Casablanca and Romeo and Juliet as one of cinema's most emotionally pure love stories, because sometimes the most powerful thing love can do is remain a memory.
I love you.
Number 20. Edward's legacy changed how Hollywood portrayed monsters. Before Edward Scissorhands, movie monsters were almost always threats to be destroyed. After it, they became mirrors of humanity. From The Nightmare Before Christmas to The Shape of Water, filmmakers began exploring gentle, misunderstood creatures who reflect our fears of rejection. Burton's creation rewired how audiences empathized, showing that sadness, difference, and love could coexist beautifully. Even Johnny Depp said years later, "Edward wasn't the monster. He was what's left when the world doesn't know what to do with kindness." That's why the movie still resonates decades later. It's not just a story, it's a feeling, a snowstorm that never melts. Edward Scissorhands remains one of the most hauntingly beautiful films ever made, a story about love, isolation, and the quiet pain of not fitting in. It's Tim Burton at his most vulnerable, Johnny Depp at his most sincere, and Danny Elfman at his most divine. Even now, over 30 years later, when that first note of the score plays, something inside us still remembers. Because Edward Scissorhands isn't just a movie. It's every moment we ever felt misunderstood and still chose to love anyway. If you enjoyed this journey through the magic and melancholy behind Burton's masterpiece, hit like, subscribe, and join us here at RewatchClub, where we celebrate the strange, the beautiful, and the unforgettable. Tell us below, which moment from Edward Scissorhands still gives you chills? We love reading your stories.